Hello there. My name is Una Burke, and if you've come across my video, welcome to my channel. I've got nearly 300 subscribers, and that's due to originally using this channel as an experiment with AI, essentially to see if I could grow a channel using AI videos that were centered around Christ, the end times, God, the Bible, Enoch, all those things. And it actually grew relatively quickly, but I wasn't able to, keep up with it or stay as consistent. Didn't try to hide it or anything. Definitely made it known that the videos that I put up were AI, but I do want to transition from the AI and just essentially use this channel as like an audio journal log from now on. Always heard it was a good idea to journal, and I think it'd just be a good idea just to essentially just kind of talk out into the universe. So if you like the sound of my voice, or if, what I talk about, maybe touches you or resonates with you, maybe you'll stick around. So, it's not necessarily going to be a positive video. Don't really want to make it a negative video, but essentially, just want to talk about things, just get some things off my chest. And one of those things is, well, to kind of give you, a little bit about me. I am what they consider a Black American, which just means that I was born in America and I have brown skin, none of the, which, I don't necessarily agree with or get too deep into it, but none of the, tether talk. Basically, a tether is someone who presents as being an American Black person, but maybe they were born somewhere, or their, heritage or history comes from somewhere other than, America, like someone who's Haitian or Jamaican, they have brown skin and they weren't necessarily born in America, or maybe they were, but, again, their roots or their parents comes from, from another country that's predominantly brown skin, and they, as people say, they masquerade or pretend to be Black Americans. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that, that idea, but that's what it is. But I was born and raised here in America, always been here. Haven't ever traveled outside of this country. I guess if you count, well, technically, if you count like, going on a cruise one time, you're technically, out of the country. But legitimately, haven't been to any other countries to kind of, experience, what they have to offer, and different lifestyles, different cultures, things like that. So I've only ever been exposed to the American culture. To add to that, my perspective is very different from, I say typical because I feel like at this point, you cannot, open up social media, turn on a TV or watch a movie without essentially hearing about a specific type of Black American experience, music as well. And it's typically the downtrodden, very, miserable, very victimhood-like experience of, Black people in America have never been able to get ahead. They've never been able to thrive. We're hated, we're hated by everybody. Everywhere we go, people dislike us. They're always trying to do things to us to keep us from succeeding and growing and creating wealth, generational wealth, being successful on a job, withholding promotions. We have to work 1,000,000 times harder than anyone else, just those type of stories. I've heard that my entire life, since I was a kid. I've heard it my entire life, but I never 100% bought into it. Okay. And to this day, I still don't. And I'm nearly 40. I'm 38 years old. I grew up and again, I'll still say like kind of typical black. I do believe there are different, kinds of black people. You have the black people who, really love and indulge in and promote hood culture. And you have black people that don't. I think it's that simple. You either do or you don't. And I grew up in the hood. Always, unfortunately had to be around those environments, and I lived in them, and it was miserable. It was miserable. Yes, there were fun times. Like if I'm, hanging out with, family, my, cousins, or if I'm hanging out with friends, yes, you can have fun times in the hood, quote unquote. Go to the park, go over to someone's house, do things. But for the most part, for me, at least, I can speak for myself, it was miserable. You essentially have an area of a concentrated area of people who are all miserable, and we eat, sleep, and breathe misery, basically. Whether it's talks from elders that talk about how, again, you'll never get ahead in life. You got to work 10 times harder. Watch out for the white man. White people hate you. You'll never get ahead, so on and so forth, to hearing gunshots, hearing gunshots at any time of the day, late into the night, middle of the day, people hanging out on the corners. We're selling drugs. I remember when I was younger going to the park with my mother and a few of my cousins. We witnessed a guy get shot right in front of us. And I had to be, if I can recall, I was about 7 or 8 years old. And that's never going to leave me. The guy did not die, at least not in front of us. He was shot, and he basically ran to a car that basically, they let him in and they drove off. Have no idea if the guy survived or, what happened there. But and of all places, it was Martin Luther King Park, Martin Luther King Park. And that's never going to leave me. That's going to stick with me for life. But having to basically walk these streets with individuals who have no boundaries. These were adults and older people who had no boundaries, that didn't know how to leave kids alone. If I'm a kid and I'm, walking to school, I'm walking to the bus, whatever it may be, you like, why would you approach me as a child? Why would you even say anything to me as a child unless it's a, hey, how's it going? What's up, little man? Which there was some of that, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, I was stricken with fear in these environments. The real fear that when I left my home, that there's a possibility that I could be seriously injured or be killed. I was afraid at a young age that I would die in the streets because of the environment that we were in. Now, whether that was a possibility or not doesn't really matter, especially when you consider the environment that the hood is. Again, there's gunshot. We hear the stories all the time. Strays, stray bullets, flying through people's windows or walls and unfortunately injuring or killing, men, women, and children. That's a real possibility and a real reality. So when you have adults, and then there was also, I take into account, there were people who were probably just, they were older than me, so they seemed like adults to me as a kid. But there were definitely grown men. It was always men. It was always men. It was always dudes that, that would be, out on these corners and, taking over the park and just kind of sitting around doing nothing. That would essentially, intimidate. They would shout out to you. They would talk to you. They would ask you. I remember them asking me if I wanted to smoke, where you live, where you from. And I'm a kid, right? So this basically, I was, as I know now, kind of going through therapy and things. I've done therapy and things. I essentially was put into fight or flight mode. And I lived within persistent duress, which just literally means you're under duress 24/7. The only times that I actually felt relief was when I was home or when I got to school. And then school was kind of a different story. There was issues in school as well. It was a bit different because I didn't feel like that I would die in school. but being seriously injured or bullied was still a possibility in a real reality, because I believe that the school would not allow me to be killed there, because there are rules. There's adults there. They're supposed to do their job. They can't be there for everything. But the worst of it was like, okay, if I get bullied or somebody physically attacks me, I won't die, because, somebody's going to break it up. There's an adult here. Whereas out in the streets, there are no rules, right? Anything goes. The police aren't going to, come and find you and, rescue you suddenly. It just doesn't work that way. But, to kind of give you like, like I said, the backstory on me, I say all that to say that fear is one crazy ass concept. And I have carried that fear with me throughout my entire life. Now, when I was younger, I used to dream of like, man, I can't wait till I get older and bigger. Then when I walk around and I'm bigger and stronger, I won't be as afraid, right? I won't be as afraid. I won't be as scared. And a lot of that became true, because what that fear did is the fear turned into anger, and it turned into anger and rage. And, And, I never felt that I wanted, like I said, I never wanted to be a part of the environments that I was in. Being a thug, being a gangster, being a gangbanger just never appealed to me whatsoever. But at the same time, in order for me to feel like I could protect myself, I felt like I had to embody some of the characteristics. Instead of being who I truly felt that I was and who I should have been allowed to be, my environment scared me so much that I had to transform myself into somebody that I didn't want to be. Now, I stayed out of trouble and everything, but to assimilate, there was a certain point to where I basically started to, sag my pants, and I would walk a certain way. I would talk a certain way, because I didn't want to be singled out as an easy target or somebody to be messed with. Or like I said, go back to being seriously hurt or being killed. Those were real fears living in that type of environment. But I never wanted to be that, but I have carried that fear, that anger, that frustration, that rage with me all the way up until this point. Like I said, I'm 38 years old. I have a family now. My wife and I, we have 4 children, 3 boys, 1 girl. I have to basically try to undo all of those things that I went through, make sense of it, so that I could raise my children with my wife in a better way than I was raised. The problem is, I haven't figured it out. I haven't figured it out. Okay. I have to be careful not to let my frustrations and my anger and rage come out on my family. And it's not a situation of like, oh, like I'm angry and like I'm out of my mind or anything like that. Like it's not a situation of, oh, when I get angry, I black out. No, I hold myself accountable for my actions. Right. And there is no abuse, there's nothing like that. But there is a lot of, irritation. I've noticed that I'm irritated when things don't go the way that we want them to go. I get very irritated, or I get impatient, right? And that's not okay. That's not who I am. And it'll be like, it's kind of a story for a different video as well. But because of the things that I basically had to go through, and there's a lot of things that I can kind of see a little bit more clearly in hindsight, obviously. But I do think there's a such thing as holding yourself accountable, but also acknowledging why you have a certain mentality or why you make decisions in the way that you make them. I still to this day am in fight or flight mode. I still to this day have issues with fear. And the fear also has kind of transformed itself and went into other facets. Fear kept me from following my dreams. Fear kept me from taking risks. I played it safe because that's what I learned in that environment that I grew up in. You got to play it safe if you want to survive. You cannot be risky out here. And I mean risky, not in like doing anything illegal at all. I mean risky as in having the confidence and overcoming the fear to leave my environment. As I said in the beginning of the video, the place that I was born and raised in, I am still in to this day. I said I didn't do a whole lot of traveling. I have never moved to anywhere different. I have never experienced anywhere different on a, kind of like on a, what am I trying to say? Over a long period of time. Like I've never switched cities or anything. And it's like, I should have went away to college, right? I should have gone away to different environments and different situations and get around like-minded people in order for me to flourish. But because I played it safe and because of fear and also manipulation within my family, and again, another topic for another video, but manipulation within the Black community as a whole. There was a lot of psychological and emotional manipulation. This whole idea of if the boogeyman is out to get us, which is quote unquote the white man, they will literally tell you, well, the world hates you, white people in particular. The world hates you, but I love you. And since I love you and they hate you, wouldn't you listen to someone that you love? Well, sure. Why wouldn't I? Why would I listen to somebody that hates me? And why wouldn't I listen to somebody that loves me? Well, it becomes more and more obvious as you get older that what you're being told isn't really the truth. It's not love. It's psychological and emotional manipulation. If I tell you that I have your best interest at heart, but I don't know what I'm doing myself, or if I went through the same psychological and emotional manipulation, I'm passing that on to you. And you don't know any better because, you're a child, you're young, you don't have an experience. Why wouldn't you listen to me? I'm considered to be an elder or someone who's lived longer than you. So I naturally have more information than you. And again, because I love you, I would never tell you or do anything that would harm you. Right now, you have people who really believe that. And I do believe that they don't necessarily have an intention of harming you, although we do know that there are people out there that do have intentions of, harming you. But you have people that will harm you unknowingly. And that's kind of the point of this video here. And that's like kind of the subject that I really want to get into and talk about on this channel. While still, talking about, more of the spiritual aspect with Christ. I think it's all interconnected. But I have learned essentially from my perspective as a Black American that the people who look just like me as a Black American, I have had more troubles, more transgressions, more issues, more frustrations, and more situations that were life altering with them than I have ever had with any other demographic. Point blank, period. Does that mean that people don't have issues, when it comes to race, when it comes to other races? Of course not. You can't live in this world with billions of people and think that you're not going to have issues with something like that, right? But I just don't believe that it's as huge as people make it out to believe, right? That's not saying that it doesn't exist. That's not saying that their perspective doesn't exist. But I'm really tired of hearing this really played out idea of we can't get ahead because of white people. I could not get ahead because of a certain type of Black person. Okay. And I do want to go, more into that. Again, holding myself accountable, but just being honest about the experience. And I'm hoping that through my honesty, and if you stayed this long, that maybe it'll resonate with you and we can have, some interesting conversations, or maybe you want to just listen, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm just talking out there into the universe, and we'll see what happens. Well, again, my name is Una Burke, and I will talk to you in the next video. Thanks for listening.